Mind Muscle Hustle podcast with the Strength Emporium. Balanced boards, rocker boards, maces, mini sleds, anything you need to get strong from the feet up. Grow beyond with the Strength Emporium. Go on over to www.strengthemporium.com. Check out all the gear we got. Today we have a very special guest, my coach, Mr. Thomas Williams from Balanced Bodies Jiu-Jitsu. Coach, how you doing, sir?
I'm doing great, thank you.
Good to have you here. We got Caleb and Jonathan as well tonight. How we doing, guys?
Doing good.
Doing great.
Good to see you guys.
You too, buddy.
Yeah. How was everyone's week? We doing all right?
Doing good, hustling, staying busy.
Getting after it. Caleb, how about you?
Good week, man. Did a little jiu-jitsu, some working out, went to work.
Did you do any of the daily workouts this week on the Discord?
I did a couple.
How'd those go?
It's good. It's good, man.
I have fun with them. Jonathan, how about you?
I did. I got a little bit sore too.
I got pretty sore, man. I on those taps, single footing them.
Oh yeah, calves are.
Oh man, it was good though. It was good.
They're already like bigger. I can't get my jeans around my calves anymore. So.
That is a good problem to have.
It's been the goal.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Coach, we've been having workouts every day on the Discord. I know you are definitely familiar with the balance boards and the equipment. Have you got on the Discord yet?
Yeah, I'm on the app.
Awesome.
I follow a couple of I don't know what you call them, pages on that app. That's a cool app.
It is a cool app, isn't it? A couple other groups you're in?
Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool.
I like how we can like talk openly like a forum.
Yeah.
'Cause I remember growing up back in the the AOL days, and we used to have forums. MySpace forums. Is that a thing?
The MySpace forums were great.
Yeah, and but so it's kind of bringing that back a little bit. I like that. It's kind of nostalgic.
Yeah, I really like that too, and I like the diversity in chat. We have a lot of different things going on. We're going to start making content, and more videos are going to be bumping on the Discord. It's going to be really good. Guys, you ready for the workout this weekend at the park?
Oh yeah, we're coming out tomorrow. We're gonna kill it. Hopefully, see some people out there and get after it.
What you got in the tank for us, Jonathan?
Well, we're gonna do some sled and then get around our prayer circle. Of course,
sled in the prayer circle. I like that, man. Well, the prayer circle was quite nice. We had how many different pieces do we have going? It was like 6 or 7.
I think maybe 6.
6 or 7 different stations, and everyone was just rotating in a big circle. Mm-hmm. And I mean, it wasn't more than 10 pounds on anything, was there?
No, it was 10 pounds. Well, no, it was about 15 pounds was the max.
Yeah.
And then, of course, we got on the sled and did a few Hail Marys, but
boy, those Hail Marys are good for you. Coach, highly recommend those.
What's a Hail Mary?
Basically, we're just running the sled with 90 pounds.
About 100 yards.
About 100 yards. The mini sled.
Cool.
And it's, man, it'll get you breathing. It reminds me a lot of jiu-jitsu. It'll make you uncomfortable. And it's real good for the lungs. So, guys.
Well, so we're thanks for coming on the podcast tonight.
Sure.
We're really glad to have you on, and kind of excited to hear your story. And I kind of wanted you to just tell us a little bit about Balanced Bodies to begin with, and what you got going on there, because I do want people in Tulsa to know what you're offering. So could you tell us a little bit about Balanced Bodies and what you got going on?
Yeah, of course. Balanced Bodies started. It really started when I met my wife, right? And she's the whole other half of Balanced Bodies. And when we met, I was fighting. I was teaching jiu-jitsu and a Muay Thai program and MMA, and I was competing. And I had no idea how to recover. And Shelby really helped me out. She's a massage therapist and a yoga instructor. And the path I was going, like I was debilitating myself, and so she really turned that around, and she became a part of our academy, and she's really like probably the foundation of Balanced Bodies, because when we started Balanced Bodies, I was in Tulsa and I was teaching jiu-jitsu privates, but I think I was like a blue or purple belt, and I'd only been doing jiu-jitsu like 8 years, and I had a small group of students, and they did private lessons with me at Triton. You know, that's where I trained. And Shelby really encouraged me to start an academy. She was like, you need to start a school. And I didn't really have the confidence in it because there's so many gyms already in Tulsa, and you name the excuses, I had them. I had all of them. The truth is I just probably wasn't confident enough to do it in myself, but she helped me out. We started a little garage gym. I built the mats. I made them out of carpet foam and puzzle mats, and then I got a tarp and I covered it and I built a frame around it. It was really it was pretty simple, but it worked for the time being. And it blew up. We had a ton of people training in my garage, which was a shitty garage in a shitty neighborhood. We were dealing with the cartel gangsters down the street all the time, literally getting in fights with them.
Builds character. It's
yeah, no, it was great. It was a really scary time. I bought a ton of guns, but eventually, we grew out of that house, and we started a real school on Memorial. We got a little building, and we grew out of that, and now we're where we are, and we're outgrowing it as well. So it's been a heck of a journey, and I could not have done it without my wife.
So what do you offer there?
Well, we have an awesome massage therapy program, and we have an awesome yoga program, and then we do a lot of jiu-jitsu. We do gi and no gi. And we've got a competition team and a kids team. But I think what sets us aside is the recovery. My goal in jiu-jitsu and my goal for my students is longevity. And so I want my students on the mat as long as possible, because I believe that the more time on the mat, the more we can learn about ourselves, the easier we can work out our problems in our personal lives. And jiu-jitsu is a great vehicle to transform your life into something better. You can really reflect on your decisions, and you can make decisions in a more calm atmosphere in your head, and you guys all already experienced that, right?
Absolutely.
You go to jiu-jitsu class and somebody's laying on you and beating your ass. Nothing the rest of the day is that hard.
Yeah,
very true.
But what Balanced Bodies really offers too is just the recovery, because our massage therapists are amazing. They work with athletes primarily, or elderly or people that are injured, and so they're really good at rehabilitation. And then our yoga program is the same. It's a rehabilitation program. It's hardly yoga, and I mean, it's hard to describe, but Shelby uses yoga massage balls, and she uses diaphragm release balls.
I've seen a lot of that stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, Jonathan knows about the yoga tune-up, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
I was kind of wanting to ask you where the name Balanced Bodies comes from, but I guess that kind of does explain it a little bit. You're working on the recovery and making sure that makes sense.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, the samurai wrote poetry and did haikus, right? And that's because they had to balance out both sides of their psyche. And we all have that. I mean, we can try to deny that we don't have the urge to crush people's skulls and take their things, but we do. It's inside of us, and it's normal. And we have to balance it out with different activities.
That's one of the things I like seeing about Mike Tyson right now, because he's gotten older and he's kind of reached that point of like real wisdom. And of course, someone as violent as him,
Yes.
and he tells these stories sometimes, and he says I don't want to be that person anymore. Because, anytime he even starts thinking about it, he goes back to that.
You can see it in his eyes.
Oh,
man.
yeah.
You can see the killer is still there.
He's like, I don't like that guy. I don't want to be that guy. And it's really interesting to hear him talk about it. And then he said, right before, he said he cried before every fight.
Yeah.
And then because he didn't like who he was about to become.
That's
some pretty powerful
terrifying
stuff.
And I mean, when you see the power that guy had, man, I mean, it's unparalleled.
But it's really neat to see him now, where he's balanced and healthy, and then talking about the difference of who he was and the killer that he was when he walked in that ring, and then how he didn't like becoming that. Yeah. It's like turning into the Hulk.
I mean, he was fully living in the shadow version of himself all the time.
Yeah, he was living in the dark.
Yeah. I mean, the motherfucker was walking around with tigers in his underwear.
Yeah.
And, going to jail all the time.
He didn't care, partying like crazy.
we're blessed to be able to like live in the today where he's now,
Yeah.
you know, getting to hear that, and it being on YouTube. Like, how much more valuable of a thing could you?
His podcast is great, man. He drops so many like just dimes all the time.
Because I think those samurai, when they write those haikus, it's pretty neat. But us today, we don't quite understand that language exactly. But we do know what Mike Tyson's saying because he's speaking our language. And when he says that, I think it's the same thing, right? He's kind of that's a warrior telling the same stories.
Yeah.
And like we are actually getting to understand like the real, you know, that language a little better.
Yeah, he's just explaining the balance now, right? Like, and that's what we don't want to have to do. We don't want to have to be like all aggression all the time, all yang. We want to be able to mix it into our life so it's well balanced. We can deal with people on a normal level every day, and we can still go kick ass once in a while.
Thomas, what led you in the first place to get into? Was it MMA that you got into first, or?
I grew up doing martial arts. I did traditional karate as a little boy.
Yeah,
I was very hyperactive. My
What kind of karate was it?
Kyokushinkai.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so good style of karate. Yeah, it was tough style. My parents drove through the mountains, you know, twice a week for 10 years to take me to this karate class. And when I moved to Oklahoma, I got into wrestling because, you know, my friends were wrestlers and they could kick my ass. Honestly, they could take me down. There's nothing I could do about it. And it was a blast. I loved it. So I wrestled middle school and high school, and then when I graduated high school, I moved to Edmond, and I was just going to school online, not really doing anything, but I was coaching gymnastics. I grew up doing, you know, gymnastics. I was a cheerleader in high school too. And when I started coaching gymnastics, there was a jiu-jitsu school in the building, and this guy that was in a band ran it, and he was really serious about MMA and jiu-jitsu, and so to do one, you did the other. You know, it was just incorporated. If you did jiu-jitsu back then, you probably did MMA. And, you know, entering that as an 18-year-old, that was awesome for me. You know, being 18 or 19 and just having a tribe right away to be like, hey, this is how you're supposed to act. This is not how you're supposed to act. And just to have guys like check me, which was huge. And every 20-year-old needs that.
Absolutely.
Definitely.
You mentioned community. That's something that I actually was talking to Jonathan about earlier. I was kind of reflecting on the community that you've built at Balanced Bodies. I now get to be a part of. But when I came to you, I had been, been in the pandemic for a year and it's been through a lot in my personal life. And a lot of my friends, you know, Jonathan wasn't back in town yet. A lot of, you know, didn't have access to a lot of my friends. So my only community at that point was kind of work. And I remember the first couple months coming, it was like I knew I wanted to be there. And sometimes I was like, I don't know if I fit in. Like, I'm just this big dude and I'm probably making everybody uncomfortable and I'm spaz and like, you know, but the months have gone by and, you know, I think of everybody like family. I love to see everybody's face. I like to know how they're doing and love getting to see you guys outside of Balanced Bodies too. Like,
and I'm super patient, huh?
Yeah.
Well, you know, something interesting too, though, that I just thought when you were telling that story is you, like most people do, but you could have quit as soon as you felt uncomfortable. It's like, I don't fit in here. And that's what most people generally do. They'll be like, oh, it's not for me or whatever, right? But you like stuck it out, and now all of a sudden you have this thing of value, right? You know, this community that is of high value to you. And a lot of people will start at the gym or they'll start jiu-jitsu, they'll start whatever they do, and they're like, these people are a little too intense for me, or they're just like, whatever's weird about it that makes them uncomfortable. And that's literally all it is. You're just uncomfortable because you're in a new place, and they're just going to go home and watch Netflix and eat bonbons and Krispy Kremes.
I felt like that so many times when I first started. I mean, I'll never forget the first time I popped my knee and I couldn't walk for like a day afterwards. And I was like, this just isn't for me. This is, you know, these are not my people. And I was getting the crap kicked out of me. I mean, because I was spazzy and I was strong and I was fairly athletic, you know, but man, it was rough, you know, and I was like, these people don't like me at all, you know, like you're like, because you're getting armbarred and choked and like just all these gruesome different ways, and you're like, man, but you know, it's just like I feel like it's just like any sport, you know, like in basketball, when you hit that 3-point, or when you get the, a perfect crossover and a layup, or in baseball, when you just, crack one to left field and, hit a double, like you get that shot and you're like, oh, that's what it feels like. You're like, okay, I can keep doing this. This is a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. But it's probably been the most physically, taxing sport that I've ever had to endure by far. But I didn't wrestle or anything like that. And I mean, even you can see in the Balanced Bodies style a lot of wrestling. I mean, when you come into class, you're going to get wrestled if you give anyone the opportunity to. They're going to try to take you down.
So y'all do tournaments and stuff?
Oh, for sure. Yeah, we have a whole competition team.
So what is your like your style of jiu-jitsu? What are you doing to help your guys like succeed in competition? Because I'm pretty familiar with training athletes for sports. So
when I prioritize it, prioritize the long-term training, the most important thing is safety first. Okay, so my school is as safe as possible. And I do that a couple of ways, like I always pair your training partners for you, or one of my instructors do. And the second platform of that is that it's self-defense related. So my emphasis is in self-defense, and that's why we train takedowns. If I can take somebody down in a fight, that's a huge advantage. So I want to do that. And if I can use jiu-jitsu as a vehicle to practice that, especially in a tournament where somebody's using aggression against me, that's going to help my students long-term. If they get into a conflict and they train to throw somebody on their back, that's a good move to have. And then, lastly is just being able to push them really hard and try to help them understand themselves. Like, I have to push you out of your comfort zone, and that's just part of it. We run a really tough room. It's a tough school. And what do you think it is, Caleb, that made you stay?
Well, I think for one thing, the physical exertion, there's benefit there, and having had some martial arts and athletic background too, like I knew in the long run it'd be worth it. I was like, this is so hard, but it's so enjoyable because I really like that. It's a martial art you can actually do also, because a lot of the stuff I did, it's like you can hit Thai pads all day long, but when you start swinging on somebody and getting Thai kicked, you're like, I don't know about this, And so being a controlled environment where you can use that energy, and because there's not so much kinetic energy, so I like all of that. But for a little while, it was, the first couple of months, it was kind of hard to come to class. Like, it gave me some anxiety, and I'd hear you say something about that from time to time. I was like, okay, well, I'm not alone. Obviously these other people have done this to the point where it's like now I'm relaxed when I think about going to class. But first couple of months, it was hard. I think what kept me coming back was a couple of things there. So it's that knowing that there's benefit in the future, and I see the way other people, like looking at your other students, how in shape they are, how happy they seem to be, how calm, it's like, it's obviously benefited their life. So that was a big draw to, just getting in shape. And yeah, man.
I saw the gains. Not really fast, but you just, you learn to move, and you're like, you suck at it for a long time. And then finally you catch one and you're like, yeah, cool. And it just keeps you coming back, and you're really just, you're competing with other people, but it's really just competing with yourself, and it's competing with that voice that tells you better stop, or you need, you're in danger, you need to get out of here, you're too exhausted, all those little excuses that come up. And that to me is like, that's when the clock starts, is when that voice starts kicking in. That's whenever that's what I keep coming back for, is to try to conquer that thing.
No doubt. I think that separates a lot of martial arts too.
For sure.
Yeah.
Because a lot of martial arts won't put you in the hot spot like that, where you're getting cooked.
Yeah, because you'll leave.
Yeah, when you got a cross face going across your chin and someone's, putting the pressure on you, it's hard to stay calm, but it's hard to, know what to do, to think properly, to escape something like that. You're getting grinded.
And as a big guy, sometimes like the worst thing about it was just knowing how hot I was going to be in that gi.
Yes.
And
dude.
it's like, I think when I first started, I had been doing some steam room and sauna, so it wasn't as bad, but that dissipated pretty quickly. And then it's like that heat tolerance was gone like in a week or two. And I noticed, man, if I don't get in enough gi classes for a while, especially in summertime,
dude, that gi will cook you if you don't stay used to it.
Jonathan, what kind of martial arts did you train?
All of them, but I started out doing like Goju karate when I was a kid. And
How old?
Like maybe like 12,
Really?
something like that. And I did that for a while. And then I did some jiu-jitsu. I trained with a guy named Igor Almeida. And another guy here in town in Tulsa named Craig Blacklock. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but I did some I did some MMA. But growing up, I lived next door to a guy from Thailand, and he taught me and his son were the same age, and he taught us Muay Thai. I'm putting quotation marks around Muay Thai. He came outside one day with a broomstick, and he said, "Kick," because we had begged him forever to learn Muay Thai, and he was like, "No, y'all are pussies." And so we were like, "No, we can do this, And we begged for probably like a year, you know. And finally one day he came out with a broom. He said, "Kick," and we were like, kick the stick. And he's like, "No," and he like, "Kick it." And then we kind of did it again. Then he slapped us with the stick. He would chase us with the broom and hit us with it. And then mostly what we did was stand there and kick each other in the ribs.
Whoa.
Great.
Yeah, it was awesome. But but I did learn like how to throw a Thai kick, and then he mostly just toughened us up.
Sure.
And that was it. That was my experience with Muay Thai. But I did some jiu-jitsu and MMA. I fought in a couple tournaments, MMA tournaments and things like that. And I went to Naga once.
Cool. Yeah. Yeah, there used to be a lot of MMA tournaments.
Oh, yeah.
That was the thing back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah, they were crazy. I would never do one of those now, but you think about it. If you took a good shot in that first fight and then you had to go another one,
Oh, bro.
you're not all there.
One tournament I did, this was like probably the craziest one, but I fought 3 fights. And the last guy I fought had a 76-pound weight advantage on me. And I watched him. I didn't have a coach or anything. I watched this guy wreck everyone in the tournament because I was standing on the sidelines watching, and he was like one hit destruction and then just beat the dog crap out of people. And I got in there, and I won the fight, but he beat me up pretty bad. Yeah. And luckily, I had a lot of training, and he was just big.
That's a lesson you learn later on too. Even in jiu-jitsu, is like I'll roll with some big guys, but for the most part, I stick in my weight class. Yeah, just for longevity's sake. I did a lot of absolute tournaments. I did lots of absolutes, but every once in a while I get injured, and the injuries add up. You just got to be careful. So, yeah, that's old school for sure. That's like pride fighting.
Well, that was kind of almost, that was barely out of the time. Well, pride was definitely still on back then. That was the time period. We were like on UFC 30, This is not really, but it was.
The Iceman was just getting warmed up.
The Iceman wasn't even.
Wasn't even there? Was
no,
he not
I think the
30?
Iceman was after that, bro.
Was it?
Yeah, he got popular.
What was that? Was that later towards 80?
I don't know the numbers. I'm just saying, like when I was doing MMA, the Iceman wasn't a thing yet. I mean, he was fighting, but he wasn't like UFC mainstream.
Maybe it was Mark Kerr.
Oh yeah, bro.
Mark
That's
Coleman.
When I started, Fedor Emelianenko had just gotten into Pride, and he had won a huge MMA tournament for another promotion, and he had just gotten into Pride, and everybody was just all, we were all sucking Fedor's dick at that point because he was the shit.
Well, he was amazing.
Dude, he's Hall of Famer for sure.
And he just looked like a farm boy. Like he didn't look like
he didn't have that look like everyone else, just juiced to the gills. He looked
God
very
forbid you
normal.
got hit with the overhand right. Though.
I think this last year too, we've seen what the body of peak performance does look like.
Yeah,
we've seen 2 guys in boxing end up with the belt because they were fat.
Yeah, that's true. That's true.
But that's not wrestling,
No.
like that. And there are fat heavyweights in wrestling sometimes. Every once in a while, you look at like Daniel Cormier, but it's rare. It's more rare. It is more. I think it's more common for bigger guys to win in boxing.
I think Fedor's weapon though was like the calmness. So you weren't getting him excited. He was just there to kill you, which was interesting. And there was no heart rate elevation.
Right.
It was just.
He probably got a call from like President Putin before the fight. It was like, hey, if you don't win this, we're gonna kill your family.
I don't know if it would affect him. The guy was stoned.
He was ice cold, man.
There was no.
He's like, I've already killed my family.
Yeah.
You know, his brother is a fighter too.
Yeah.
And he was involved with the Russian mob. And some of his fights were really good, and the other ones, you could tell he'd been partying a little too hard, not so good.
Yeah, Fedor, I don't know if he would even show very much emotion after straight blasting someone with those brutal head kicks that he was so famous for. I mean, those things look devastating.
I think when I was doing MMA, Crow Cop was the man. He was at the peak performance, which that dude was.
You know, he was a member of their parliament too. Yeah, while fighting in Pride, he served as a member of the Czechoslovakian parliament.
He's like one of the more impressive people. I mean, that guy. I mean, he was on the special ops, some kind of special ops thing, and that guy was amazing.
Croatian anti-terrorist squad or something like
Okay,
that.
yeah, that's
Is he
nuts.
Croatian? Maybe I screwed that up with Czechoslovakian. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
Are those
Better
the same
watch out.
thing?
I don't know. Better watch out for those head kicks.
Yeah,
I know. Tell me about it.
we had a little bit of a conversation about this a while back because when I start talking about like Crow Cop and Fedor and all these guys, I start to wonder, and like Ken Shamrock and stuff, the difference between the guys we see today, because like John Jones just doesn't quite seem like the same caliber of athlete as like Mark Kerr and Crow Cop and those guys. But it's hard to tell though, because like Zach mentioned, is it because the guys are so good? It's kind of like NFL. Everyone's so big and so strong and so good that it just all looks the same. Or were the guys back then that much better athletes?
Yeah, that's a good question, right? Because I think throughout time you see waves of talent, and the talent is so high, and it goes to show how high those guys' talent were, because they weren't doing what we're doing now to train fighters. Like there was no UFC performance center back then where they've got like a treadmill underwater.
I actually think that's the problem. When we're talking strength and conditioning, sometimes I think that's well, if we want to look at the NFL right now, in the 70s, they came out with this thing called the Nebraska program, and it's basically like a computerized system of how to lift weights. So it gives you exactly the percentages of your maxes and when to do them and how often, and it basically just automates the whole system, right? So it started in the 70s. So today, everyone who plays football has gone through the Nebraska program.
The problem with that, though, is like you may have a pile of rocks, and the average weight of those rocks is 2.2 pounds, but not one rock weighs that.
Yeah.
Right. That's a Paul Check. I stole that from Paul Check. But that's how our medicine system works too, is like, yeah, that program may work for some people, but it's not going to work for everybody.
Well, it kind of works to an extent for everybody, right? And so everybody ends up being like, it's kind of like a cookie cutter thing now. Now everyone has the same training, so you're entirely relying on genetics now, because what's the other factor? Sure. So back in the day when we were watching like Deion Sanders, well, he had his own training program. One of the things he did, well, he lifted his own weights and did all this stuff, but one of the big things he did, he'd go out to the highway, and there's like these big, like by the embankments on the highway out here, these real steep hills basically. Oh, yeah. And he'd run all of his pass plays all four directions. So whether it's north, south, east, west on that embankment. So his ankles and being able to cut on there made him incredibly fast. And this was his own thing he came up with. And there's other stories about all these different guys and like their training systems they just came up with for no reason. The way the farm training, they were like lifting hay bales and like crazy stuff like that. And they would just come up with these weird training routines and just go absolutely crazy. They figured out what worked for them, which I think now that type of thing gives you an edge on the guys who aren't doing it, because you're going to be strong at something that they are not. And that gives you a skill set that others won't do. And that's sort of what I'm doing with all my equipment and stuff. It's so different, which gives you an edge on the guys doing the Nebraska program. And I think that's what we're looking at maybe today. Like you said, they go to the UFC training hall and they all do the same thing. They're doing the Nebraska program.
Well, Muhammad Ali used to run backwards for miles.
Yeah.
Think about what that does to the feet and the tibialis anterior and the quads. Yeah. The knees are over the toes that whole time. We know what it does with the sled.
Your whole extensor chain's firing up.
He would run backwards. And if you look at his fights, he's constantly running backwards.
Yeah.
And there's coordination and balance in there too. You're not going to get any other way. And that's the thing, is like people come up with these weird ideas and do it, and that's what's giving you the edge, instead of following what the science says.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, I don't ever remember maxing out for weight at your gym at
No, we
any
would
point
never
in
do
time
that.
ever.
No.
Like, we would max out for reps.
Yeah.
You know, how many reps can you get? But it was never like, you know, let's throw 225 or 315 or something crazy on.
Well, the second that you max out, you've got 5 weeks it takes you 5 weeks to fully recover.
Really?
So how could I possibly ever get you strong if every 5 weeks we have to, you're being put back 5 weeks to get to another real workout again? And then not to mention, you're probably going to max out. If you're into that style of training, you're going to max out again before 5 weeks is up. You're never going to get any better. And that's those guys you talk to at the gym that like, how much you bench, bro? 405? How long you been at 405? 5 years?
Yeah.
I do 405 every Monday.
Well, dude, and then you watch them do 405 and their range of motion is about, you know, maybe 4 inches down and 4 inches right back up. And it's like, oh, that's what you're calling a rep on
It's like
405?
It's like, bro, you couldn't figure out how to get to 410 in 5 years. Like, come on, man. But that's that also the ego stuff, because I can't let it go and go back to 225 and build back up again, which that's really what they should do.
That's all ego for sure.
All ego.
That's because those guys don't have any other purpose.
Yeah. Well, they arrived. Like once I hit 405, that's all I ever need. That was the goal. They've arrived. They're stuck now.
Right.
It's almost like a trap.
Yeah, the conventional gym, man. I mean, every now and then I'll go have a good workout, but man, sometimes I'm just like, I got to get out of here and get back to a plank bar, get back to the balance boards, and you know, just do something that's a little more fun.
I like this time of year because I like watching people at the gym while I'm working out. January, February, it's a circus. It's great.
That's true.
It's like when the white belts just come in, you know?
Yeah.
I've been working out outside in my garage. Me and my boy, we work out at night right now because we got a new baby at the house. So any excuse to get outside is good. And yeah, we're just hitting the weights in the garage. Kingston's doing the maces and
Really?
Yeah, he likes to do the mace from one shoulder. He goes from one shoulder to the other, and he'll do squats with it and stuff. And
Yeah.
Nice.
I just kind of let him freestyle. I let him do whatever he thinks fun.
Yeah.
You know, we do the reverse hyper and all that fun stuff. But I love working out in the cold.
It's great. It really is.
I feel so good afterwards.
Yeah, and even doing jiu-jitsu in the cold is, I mean, it's so much better than when it's summertime and it's just, oh man, hot and
You don't like
horrible.
those heat shock proteins?
No, I don't like those heat shock proteins, man. I'd rather get the those cold shock proteins, man. Come on.
I trained at Triton for a long time. No AC.
Oh, really?
No AC in the summertime. And we would, you know, we'd be sitting there after a class and it'd be 113 in that metal building. And Professor Pete would be up there making a speech for like, you know, 10 minutes. And you could see the steam coming off of people.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a little rough. I'm not into that.
I train in AC now.
Yeah, I'm about that. I'm about that life.
Oh.
Like,
You were vegetarian for a while. You had talked about possibly hunting some deer and eating some meat. What's going on with the diet right now, Thomas?
Yeah, man. You know, I grew up hunting. I grew up in Montana, and so I think you have to actually. It's probably it's part of your citizenship there. But in college, I did a report over factory farming, and it made me switch my diet over. And I was looking for better performance in the gym too. This was probably 2006. And so I went vegetarian, and intermittently I would eat fish, but mostly vegetarian. And so I haven't eaten red meat in like 10, 15 years. Yeah, over 15 years. So I started incorporating wild game and grass-fed beef, just because I feel like my body needs it, you know. And that was a major change. I was like, you know, it's hard for me to keep weight on because I teach 30 hours a week.
Yeah.
So I feel like I just need the extra nutrients, and my performance in jiu-jitsu was kind of flatlining for a while. So the extra nutrients helps.
Do you feel like throwing the red meat back in there has given you any increase while you're training? Any sort of, you know, tangible gains that you can feel?
I mean, I'm trying to adjust to the heavier weight class right now. Just my biodynamic, like just the way my body feels in space. It feels a little different. It's a little I accelerate a little harder now because I have more mass. I don't know. I just feel a little off, but
Yeah.
I need the fat. I need the fat because it's hard on my joints. Jiu-jitsu is hard on the joints. And
No
and the
doubt.
fat helps with that. And then it helps with the impact, like just having a layer.
Yeah.
For like 4 years, I had a torn ACL, and that's the second time I tore it. So I did everything I could to not have another surgery. I was like, I'm not having another ACL surgery. I'll do all the physical therapy in the world. And I did. And I competed on it for 4 years, and eventually I still had to have knee surgery. I had to have the ACL back. And so, I did the ACL surgery, and they did a cadaver. And the recovery from that has been much better than the last surgery. But while it was torn, I was competing, and I was just creating terrible imbalances in my body, just to do anything to stay on the mat, because I had, you have sponsors and you have a gym reputation to keep up. And I like to fight. I want to fight, and it keeps me purposeful. So I just grinded it out for like 4 years, which I probably shouldn't have. I should have had the surgery back then, but my recovery since then has been a lot better, and then the diet change has helped that recovery. The more I look into like what my tissues need, the more meat I probably need to eat, and that's what's been working for me. So, and that's the thing with Zach and I. We met when I was competing in California, and then when he moved to Tulsa, right away we started working out together pretty much.
Yeah, for sure.
And we were pulling sleds back then, and I was just following kind of like conjugate system, like what Louis Simmons was doing. I figured, man, if he can build backs that strong, we could use some of his stuff.
No doubt.
Yeah, and then Zach turned me on to Paul Chek. Paul Chek's incredible. He's a madman, but I use some of his stuff too. And then I don't know if you guys saw, but the knees over toes guy, you just did a podcast with Joe Rogan.
Yeah, it was a great episode, man.
I haven't got all the way through it, but it's a lot of the stuff that you guys are talking about.
For sure.
Just being strong from the feet up, and that's pulling the sled. Like that guy, he said he pulls the sled every workout.
Yeah.
As a warm up.
Yeah, and I mean, his story was fascinating. I really liked how he was talking about being 23 years old and getting a full ride scholarship offered after basically being called the old man of the team for years, rehabbed himself. And then, I mean, dude, getting a full ride scholarship, even if it's to a JUCO at 23, is pretty crazy. I mean, that does not happen. But then being told by his coach that he can't do the exercise that got him the scholarship.
You have to do the Nebraska system.
Yeah.
You stated that.
Well, that's the way it is, because if they basically, that coach sees it as if he does something outside of that and they lose or they do badly, then he's going to lose his job. But if he sticks to the system and they do badly, well, he stuck to the system and did it by the book. So it's really a factor of most of these coaches are scared to do anything new.
Don't you guys just hate college sports?
Pretty much, yeah. I don't watch any sports. I haven't watched sports.
I just hate college
so
sports.
long.
I'm sorry, guys. I know. I don't watch football or baseball or fucking ice skating. I don't. If people aren't fighting, I just don't care.
Well, if someone I
Pretty much
know
the same way.
were to be playing that sport or on the field, then I'm into it. But like otherwise, I don't really.
You're just a nice guy, though. That's what that is.
Well,
Being friendly.
if I know them, that means I probably trained them.
Personal.
So
That's
like,
cool. Yeah, I get that.
it's pretty dope then. But as far as like just getting up there to watch football because of like, no, I'm not.
What do you think the most important exercise for longevity is for jiu-jitsu or MMA fighters?
Longevity wise, that would be a pretty all encompassing thing, because I feel like there's so many parts, moving parts, like to keep longevity, like, well,
It'd have to be like a series of exercises or
yeah, pretty much.
a routine.
Because everyone's so different too, but basically it starts in the feet. Everything does. And that's why I'm always, pushing the balance boards, because it's your foundation. So if your feet aren't strong, I guarantee you're not strong. But it also, on the other note, as far as fighters go, if your hands aren't strong, you're not strong.
Very
And
true.
so it's grip or feet, and it's both. So I'm basically when I train any athlete, especially though a fighter or anyone in like a combat sport, it's going to be feet up and hands in. I have to do that at the same time. For two reasons. One is, well, as far as combat sports, when you're just getting a hold of people is half of the fight, you know, like gripping and moving and trying to manipulate them. The grip's such a big deal. But what that really is I'm making your brain have like a bigger battery. And your hands, like your fingertips, are so far away from your brain. All I'm trying to do is make sure that your brain has enough power to give you a strong grip. Same with your feet. So it's a communication issue. But if I can make your feet and hands strong because they're so far away, then everything in between there is going to be incredibly easy.
So would you say you're building the nervous system as well?
That's the main thing I'm building.
Yeah, you're driving like bigger bigger
neurons,
drives in the
yeah.
axons.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like pushing the sled is the ultimate building of your neurons and being able to really fire, like being able to handle it, the stress.
Yeah, well, pushing the sled's going to give us the power, because I don't push a 50-pound sled. We push 1,000-pound sled.
Oh yeah, and did you hear actually?
Yeah, I know, and they don't push it. I do, and I'll push a 1,200-pound sled, y'all.
No. I was gonna say, did you hear Knees Over Toe guy?
Yeah.
He was talking about having to have the perfect surface for the sled, and just like the right amount of resistance from the asphalt. Like you can't have too much, but you can't have too little. And I think the asphalt is perfect for it. But even, man, I would have to agree with you. Like my first jiu-jitsu injury was popping my knee.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since I've been on the balance boards, no knee popping at all. Not even.
Well, Knees Over Toes guy also said if you put 1,000 pounds on the sled, it won't go.
Well,
I've had myself and so many others push that.
Well, we
so.
know that to be, quite a lie.
The sled is okay. The reason why you do the big three, like the conjugate system you mentioned a while ago, right? It's literally building it's still just building the nervous system. So if I want to move a heavy weight, you have to have been under that load in order to gain that kind of power. But a barbell it's a balanced weight. It's like balanced on each side. And in order to lift a heavy enough weight for you to really get that same kind of reaction, it's kind of dangerous because you're now having to put 600 pounds on your back or whatever it is for you. And now it's an incredibly dangerous exercise. And there's other parts to it as well where those are all backwards movements for an athlete who's moving forward, because even in jiu-jitsu, wrestling, whatever, I want to run you over, which is a sled type movement, pushing forwards. If you want to get really good at jumping backwards, then you deadlift and you squat. But I think even if you want to talk woo-woo stuff, that is you're jumping backwards into a fear thing. So I'm retreating. And so that you're constantly training that motion instead of like the pushing forward thing of the sled, then that's a problem.
Interesting.
And so if I want to make a very, very powerful football player, I'm going to have him more on the sled than I might have him do bench and squat and deadlift. I'm going to have him do some of that. But 80% of the time, I'm going to have him on a heavy sled to build that power. And then there's other stuff too. There's all the little stuff like the balance boards and all the little movements that we do. But the sled is like the one big power movement. And that's how we build that type of nervous system strength.
Sled has been my best recovery tool for my ACL.
Yeah.
Yeah, by far. Because the ACL tore so many times. The first time I tore it, I was 16 and I was doing gymnastics and I landed on it and blew out really bad. And that's because my hamstrings couldn't handle it. My hamstrings were not strong enough to handle the force from gymnastics and whatever. And over time, those hamstrings, they grow short, tight, and weak. And I think that's probably the case with a lot of people. And I didn't even have a sled. I just threw some weights together, hooked it up to a TRX, and I just dragged it through the mud. And, that's what we did in that field for.
Yeah, we did that for
a long
months
time.
And months and months.
I used to go to empty.
And it helped.
I used to go to empty parking. Well, you know where that Stroud Outlet Mall was? I used to do physical therapy at this little nursing home out there. And at lunchtime, I'd go over to that empty parking lot, put my car in neutral, and just push that thing until I couldn't breathe.
That's awesome.
And I'd stop and do it again.
I bet you look crazy.
Yeah, there were, people would pull, like, because, nice country folk, they'd pull off the highway and come by and be like, hey, man, you need some help? I'm just working out.
My first gym, I was partnered with a guy who did private basketball training here in Bixby. And he had he was connected with one of the surgeons in town named Jeff Fox. He's like a big time ACL surgeries. He does most of them. And they sent me to, so all the kids in school who got blown out ACLs went to me to get rehabbed or whatever. So they sent me to Cincinnati School of Sports Medicine to learn like ACL rehab and all that type of stuff. And basically, we go through all this training, all this book work, and all this stuff, and all these exercises, and then every single time you would get through with a curriculum, it ended up being like, we're gonna use sleds to rehab the ACL, and then they would show you a bunch of stuff that like weird exercises that basically was just like for entertainment, just so they had something to say.
A lot of it's just quadricep work, unnecessary quadricep.
Yeah, it's just pull the sled forwards, pull the sled sideways, pull the sleds backwards, and then you'll fix your knees. And it was like, that was literally the whole thing. And everything else that they gave you, all other exercises and all other book work was just so they had a curriculum. Because they could have just gone and told everyone that. Just pull the sleds.
Just pull sleds.
Yeah, but they have to make it complicated because that's the only way they can make it,
So
marketable.
Do you do lateral movements with the mini sleds then?
Yeah.
Or?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Forward, backward, sideways. Yep.
We haven't done much lateral. We've just been going forward lately.
Oh, well, we've been walking for a mile.
Yeah.
But, we used to do laterals all the time outside in that field by the gym.
Yeah, that's true.
Thomas, I have a quick question for you about the diet thing. You said something about depending on what your tissues needed. Was this just like stuff you were reading, or were you actually getting labs done to see how your diet was affecting?
No, it's just from stuff that I was reading and experiencing.
Just kind of going by how you feel, your body's reacting.
Yeah. Yeah, and I can tell like if I'm more tight or stiff. Most of that's diet related for me. Hydration's huge, obviously. Sleep is huge. And then just getting the right amount of vitamins and minerals. And I think with a vegetarian diet, it's really tough. It's just tough.
You were talking about whole milk earlier. What's that dairy in, I think it's Claremore's, the Swan Brothers?
Yeah.
So I follow them on Facebook.
Unpasteurized.
Yeah, they have the unpasteurized milk. I think it's the only thing around here you can get raw milk.
It is.
Well, they've been shut down.
No way. Really?
Yeah, so I've been following them for a while on Facebook, and they've been having a lot of trouble and it's really weird to me because we're in the middle of this COVID, all this crap, and they have been focused on Swan Brothers particularly. They've been in like a legal battle with the whatever I don't know if it's Tulsa County Food and Drug or whatever, but
right.
They've been in a legal battle with them for off and on for the last at least year. Where they'll get shut down for 2 weeks and over and over and over again. And then the last post I've seen from them that they have had to quit selling raw milk entirely because of, it's literally they're just trying to shut them down for no actual reason.
Yeah, there has been. I mean, for a while, years ago, they were raiding farms and charging them with crossing state lines with contraband or whatever for bringing raw milk across state lines. There has been a war on stuff like that, and it's really kind of outlandish. I mean,
it's those double D's, baby. Dangerous dairy.
Dangerous dairy.
I just don't understand how we just survived, like, I don't know.
How many millions of years, thousands of years?
Hundreds of thousands.
All our ancestors killed people with swords and drank raw milk.
Yeah.
The Mongols almost conquered the entire world, mostly drinking raw horse milk.
That's exactly right.
Raw milk.
I mean,
they weren't like, guys, we got to boil this milk.
They're afraid the Khan's going to come back.
Well, and
don't give me any raw milk.
Like, I've seen a lot of good things drinking raw milk.
Yeah.
Like, I feel better.
Yeah, for sure.
The protein's good for me, and if I have the genetics to handle it, because my blood type's O negative.
Yeah.
If I have the genetics to handle it, like my ancestors did, why shouldn't I be allowed to drink it?
I thought O blood types weren't that good with dairy.
Any Rh negative blood type is really good with dairy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'm B blood type. I know I can have it. A lot of dairy.
I used to drink a lot of milk. It's been out of my diet for a long time. So is that something that you keep in your diet pretty consistently?
Or? Yeah, I love it in my coffee. Yeah. Super coffee nerd, so I have to use whole milk in it.
Yeah, I mean, are you drinking much milk besides that, or is it just
no, I drink
like glasses of it?
I drink it.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think it's kind of wild that, like, just like that with the attacking the dairy, I really don't understand the concept outside of but like the people with the gardens, like you can't have gardens in your front yard, they'll come like fine you all kinds of money and crazy stuff, even if you're not in an HOA.
Yeah.
It's really wild to me. I don't understand why they don't want you to feed yourself.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
You know
I mean, I
why?
get it, but at the same time, I don't understand how the money actually affects them that much.
I mean, just imagine if, dude, think about if everyone here had a garden.
Yeah, but like most people are way too lazy for that. You got to know that in reality, like most people just aren't gonna.
Maybe if they knew how cheap it would be,
Maybe.
you know, like how much
That's
money
true.
you'll actually save instead of having to buy gas to go to the store and pay tax on that gas and then buy the stuff at the store and pay tax on it with the money that you've already been taxed for. Like,
Or even if there was just like a couple people in each neighborhood that like to do that, and you can throw down a little bit, maybe help out every once in a while, and they kind of.
It seems wild that
Manage
it's so dangerous to them that they have to crush it at the most minuscule level imaginable, and that makes you really sit down. And when you really look at it, you go, "Hold up, this is like kind of insane." There's one raw dairy place, and it's tiny. That's not a big business.
No, not at all.
And
Is
they're
there another one other than Swan
not
Brothers?
that I know of.
Yeah, Swan was the only one.
It has to be
gotta
the
get
only
your own
one
cow
for
now.
like
Yeah.
minimum 100 miles, maybe more.
Wow.
Right. And so like this tiny little dairy in the Tulsa area, and there's nothing else around, and they're like, who's financially worried about this in
Yeah.
reality?
How is that such a threat to everything?
But I guess the problem is if you find out that you could, you know, get some benefits for this, if you find out that if you could grow vegetables in your front yard and get benefits from this, it could crush or like collapse the whole system. Is that really the scenario?
Hey, how crazy is that? That like the real form of anarchy. I think Thomas has said this. Or
So punk rock to grow a garden,
it's
bro.
So punk
it's the Amish. The Amish
the
are the anarchists
They are. That's real anarchy in effect, man.
in their stupid hats and their
Yeah.
stupid beards. The Amish are rock and roll.
They are
gotta go on.
based.
They are based.
They're willing to
dude.
take their livelihood in their own hands. You got to
Yeah.
respect that.
That's true, man.
They're like, we'll build it, we'll do it.
I mean, the only thing that got us here was everyone being able to farm. And with it, I mean, I'm pretty sure all of our great grandparents had a garden,
Oh yeah.
you know?
Well, actually-
and even grandparents.
Yeah. Right now, you ever heard of the Patriot Garden?
No.
So in World War, I believe World War II, maybe World War One. I don't know. Time's hard. Numbers are hard for me. The Patriot Garden was actually advertised to everybody to do in the U.S. They would send out pamphlets and instructionals and how-tos on how to do it, and it was basically how we fed ourselves while all the men were in World War II getting mowed down in the meat grinder.
Yeah.
And but they've sort of like gotten away from it, and like anything you try to read now as far as gardening is like really kind of, it's like you know how they like to put out so much information that you almost can't do stuff. And they've kind of done the same thing with gardening now, and they've got all these like ridiculous ways of doing stuff. And I'm sure some of them are fine, but the Patriot Garden's like the most return. I mean, they put money and scientists and like a lot of work into making, like figuring out how to plant the rows and do the thing. You can still kind of find it now, but we're actually working on that at the house. My wife is putting all that together.
Yeah, you guys got a little patch of some good soil over there.
Oh yeah, some old soil that they've been working for a long time. And basically trying to set up the Patriot Garden again, because I was telling my wife about it, because she's all into like the gardening channels and all the information. She's always telling me about the no-till gardening and all this crazy stuff. And I was like, listen, just do what my grandma did, because she produced a massive amount of food in a small plot. Like, do what she did. And she's been looking into the Patriot Garden, and it's the easiest, least amount of work for the most amount of return. And that's why that the government told us all to do it back then, because they needed us to produce food.
Do you think you'll be able to get some of that up on our Discord at some point?
Like about the Patriot Garden?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like
for
a little
sure.
how-to.
Mackenzie
really
would
cool.
absolutely love to let everyone
That'd be
know
great.
about
Yeah.
that.
That would be cool.
Otherwise, we're going to be dependent on like Elon Musk to spill some space sugar on the way to Mars or
Yeah.
something.
I mean, it's pretty crazy. Like the most punk rock thing you can do is like, if you want to collapse the system right now, bro, let's grow a garden in your front yard
And milk a cow.
and milk a cow.
And drink it right
And
from
then-
the teat.
If you grow a garden, though, what's going to happen is you're going to start having something to talk to your neighbor about. and y'all might
yeah.
actually talk to each other
Yeah.
and share things.
Find something you get along with.
Yeah, and then the whole system collapses from there.
Yeah.
Instead of sitting at home watching the same thing on Netflix, 20 yards apart, hating each other.
Yeah. And buying a car to one up each other over and over again. Yeah.
Yeah, think about that, man. We've got a whole society that is based on, being validated by material possessions,
Mm-hmm.
and most people don't even care if you have them or not. But we're still like, we tell ourselves, yes, I'm validated by this.
Well, there's this really interesting thing. I have like this huge dream of like seeing everybody like grow gardens in their front yard.
I love that idea.
Because there's this thing that would happen too, where like you have excess tomatoes and you give it to this old lady who's just bored, and then you get like marinara back.
Yeah. Oh,
Right?
yeah.
So,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
It's like,
Like
or
a
whatever.
delicious marinara, just anything.
You throw
I
them
mean,
sweet potatoes,
some
and the
salsa,
next
whatever.
day they're going to bring you a sweet potato pie. Like that's like,
Right.
how much better could it get than that?
Yeah.
But we don't do stuff like that with each other. I mean, like you live in a community of like a lot of people living close together, Caleb. And like, I know you, because you're so friendly, talk to each other, but there's so much, most people would never say hi to their neighbor.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Caleb's a rarity.
It's a great little community, and I've actually, most of my neighbors that I know my actual neighbors, but most people that I've met are people that go to the pool all the time, because in the summer, I'm always in the pool, like and then like I help some of those people decorate their little condo with Christmas lights, and they'll bring me stuff every once in a while. But it's been a long time since I've had anything like that.
That's the only way we get back at the system, man.
Yeah.
Don't you guys think that people that live in a city kind of adapt to a hive mindset?
Oh yeah.
You know, like
You
where
can feel it.
it really like the rules and the values drop to the lowest denominator.
Especially with the mentality of all this COVID stuff, because and Tulsa's not like super huge city, but you start looking at people you don't know as a potential problem or threat. So now it's like, you're walking farther away, you're looking at them suspicious because they've got a runny nose or
I've heard people describe people they see like out in public as disease vectors.
Yeah.
And like that's the mentality like a lot of people have.
That's a military tactic.
Oh yeah.
You dehumanize the enemy.
Well, we are trying to like everyone's an extremist now.
So if you can split us in half somehow, masks, no masks, vaccines, no vaccines, whatever you want to do, now you've got a side to dehumanize, and then you've got a split.
That's very true.
Right?
It becomes to me, it seems so obvious and right in your face that that's what they're doing. It's like a complete division tactic.
It's hard for people to step back and see that.
That's crazy.
It's weird though. I kind of know a lot of people who maybe kind of see it. You know what I'm saying? But there's, that way. But then maybe that's the people like around my bubble or whatever. But then you look out here when you go out in public in Tulsa or wherever, and I see everybody, and you realize like how far the other way most people are.
Yeah. Well, I mean, do you even watch the TV very much?
I don't.
Thomas, you don't even have a TV.
No,
Caleb,
we do. We got a TV.
You got a TV, but you hardly. I mean, I've never seen it on when I mean, and mine's just like a big computer screen. I mean, you see YouTube on all the time, but
I mostly watch clips every once in a long while. I'll catch a show or a movie or something.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like people like us are, definitely way more likely to be on one specific side of that, whereas the people that got CNN on or Fox News or whatever on all day long, it's just blasting. I mean, they think a very specific way,
You know what? I actually have some family members who sleep in front of the news.
Oh my gosh, are you serious?
And she very clearly is unvaccinated, doesn't believe in most of it, but is scared of COVID in a big way.
Wow.
And so I wonder how much of it, which the way it is it because she's just hearing it all the time, like, is it just the repetition?
Most
like
of besides the time, when I was married, like when I've been single, I've mostly lived in like little condos and stuff. And there'll be, half my neighbors will be like young single people like me, and the other half are usually like older people. I can't tell you how many times like you can, be like 2 a.m. and look out the window and you can see through your neighbor's window, and like Fox News or CNN is still like the old person just sleeps in that chair, listen to that all day long,
has to be
all
bad.
night. It's not good for
That's got to be horrible.
It's like the worst brainwashing.
Yeah, I don't even feel like you could like wake up rested after listening to all that stressful shit in your sleep.
I've seen on Reddit where people will like, so on the, every time I go to my grandparents' house or, these older, for holidays and stuff, they're like, get the remote and like, a parental block like Fox News and CNN. So, and they're like, my dad didn't even notice. And after a month, it was actually great to talk to him again. He quit yelling about everything.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That is awesome. You know what? I wonder. So like, if you think about who you are right now, like as a a person, and then you think about what might happen to you if you sat around and listened to that all the time, like who would you turn into?
Yeah.
I don't want to actually go there, but
No.
so then I remember growing up, my parents were like extremely strict, like Pentecostal Christian. Like you can't have like outside, like any kind of non-Christian music in the house.
Simpsons,
like,
no Ninja Turtles.
I never watched Simpsons, dude. I did watch Ninja Turtles. I was allowed that. But
I wasn't allowed the Ninja Turtles, man. They kept them from me.
I thought it was absolutely
Still
insane.
traumatized.
Yeah.
That's bullshit.
Yeah, that is. You really missed out. I thought it was insane back then, though. Like,
Yeah.
and I was really annoyed because a lot of the things that they were worried about were kind of dumb.
Oh yeah, I remember feeling the exact same way.
If you think about the concept now, that's exactly what we're just talking about. If
Yeah.
you're not careful of what you are letting in, you're gonna turn into something you shouldn't be,
Yeah.
or you don't want to be. And they were trying the best they could, which might have been a little misguided.
Yeah.
But that lesson is still there, and I might choose, maybe I do want to be that thing, and they
Right.
would freak out if they knew I was watching it, right?
Right.
But then there's like, if I were to sit around listening to,
Well, man, and I
So
look back on, all the crazy restrictions that I had when I was young, and some of it I agree with. I'm like, man, they were onto something, like the ways of this world, man, like there was some legit wisdom in some of those things, but just like you said, we tend to just take things, we get a good idea and then we take it to the extreme and completely ruin it.
well, that's what they were doing. So the wisdom was there, but then in the 90s, there was this phobia of like Satan was in the cereal box or something, like, so they were scared of everything, which I think is also a problem, and they were just regurgitating stuff that these like dorks were saying online. Cause like Caleb and I talked about this earlier, Christian music is the worst thing and the reason why is because those people in the church wouldn't tell them that they sucked because they're trying to be nice. And so Miss Grandma Sue or whatever is always going to say, honey, you're so good.
That's a great theory.
I've actually had a musician tell it to me, and that's where I got it from. But the same thing goes with all this stuff. If you are encouraging people when they shouldn't be encouraged, you're going to end up with some really like awful outcomes. And so just like in the 90s, we had like this thing where the Christian information people were getting was awful because it didn't matter what you said. And you know how like kind of just the Karens were allowed to talk a lot.
And I don't know that, maybe younger people or people that actually, I haven't listened to Christian music in forever, but I imagine some of it's probably a lot better than the stuff like today, when I actually did listen to it in the 90s.
Today it's getting pretty good because the internet trolls will tell you that you suck.
The Christian trolls.
Yeah, like Lecrae and stuff like. There's some really good Christian stuff now,
Christian
but that is because of the internet.
Yeah.
And the trolls are like, and they say that stuff all the time, and that's that. We don't need that, but the trolls are so awful that you will go, oh my gosh, like I have to deal with this, or quit because you suck.
Yeah.
Jesus isn't listening to Christian music in that. He's got like Nirvana on it.
Jesus is listening to MTV Unplugged Nirvana.
Hell yeah. He's disappointed though.
You are going to see the trolls will take a person who's kind of weak and absolutely destroy you because they go so hard on you.
Oh man, there's been tons of people that have literally committed suicide from getting trolled.
That's what I was getting at, because they'll say that stuff and it's so brutal that when the people that would make it through it and actually do end up making good, you have to be incredibly strong. And so you're going to make some awesome stuff. So you're actually seeing like the Buffalo theory at work with music right now.
The Buffalo theory.
Oh yeah. Only the strong survive.
Oh, okay.
You can't care what people think, right?
You don't know what Buffalo theory is?
I was unfamiliar.
All right.
mean, I know strong survive. But
No, so the Buffalo theory is that's why Buffalo kind of evolved to be so strong, is because you've got your slowest, weakest buffalo in the back, and they're the ones that get eaten by the predators.
Right.
So your strongest, best buffalo are going to make it to the front, and they're the only ones that are going to breed. And so then you just keep getting a stronger and stronger and stronger buffalo, or whatever you are.
become almost extinct when guns come into play.
I mean, but they kind of did that on purpose because of the trains. It wasn't really guns. It was the trains.
That's true. It was the trains, man. The trains really.
They just didn't like that they were stepping on our train tracks. I don't know why they couldn't just mow them over. I guess you can't mow over a whole herd.
Well, yeah, that was part of the problem. They would sometimes. They came up with those cattle guard things on the front of the trains. They just
probably still derailed them probably a lot. So my father-in-law was telling me they used to back in the day around here, they used to have a butcher truck. And so these people that would have cows or whatever that were they broke a leg or something like that and it needed to be put down and butchered right now, they would take this truck out and go do it. It was kind of an emergency deal. And I think it was his dad or whoever owned it, I'm not sure, but they had a few people working for him. And but my father-in-law's job was to put the cow down.
Whoa.
Yeah. So you think about it, he's like 16, 18, whatever, and his job's like shooting him in the head.
Wow.
Which is pretty nuts. And he tells me this story so nonchalant. I'm like, okay. But he was telling me the story of this buffalo. And they had a buffalo that got whatever was wrong with it and they needed to put it down. And so they always shot him with a 22 and they point blank in the head. They had a little 22 rifle. And so it works on every cow they'd ever shot, right? So he goes up to this buffalo, and
oh man,
they've got it in the little cage or whatever they put it in, and squeezes them, and he puts it right at his skull, shoots it, and the buffalo just like
nothing,
kind of like gets angry in his eyes, and that's it. He just kind of like shakes it off, and you can see the little tuft of hair. He said you could see the white where it was like the skull. Did absolutely nothing to the buffalo. It just kind of made him mad.
Whoa. And
so then he was like, well, what's going on? Like, maybe something was wrong. It was a dud on the bullet or something, right?
Man, that was a big mosquito.
Yeah. And so, like, he puts another one in the round and tries it again, like, just shakes it off, nothing. And they said, well, okay, we're going to have to go home and get a bigger gun because this is not going to work. And he'd just never seen anything like it, but that's how thick those buffalo skulls are.
Yeah, the strong do survive, huh?
Yeah.
And they're built for it.
Yeah.
My grandfather owned a buffalo ranch, actually.
Really?
And some of my earliest memories are being out there and just being shocked at, like, you see a buffalo next to a Cadillac and you're like, wait, what? Like, they're that big?
Yeah. Could you imagine being like Native American taking one down with like an ash bow?
Yeah.
That is wild.
Yeah, you gotta be apex. You
have to be able to shoot it exactly where it has to go. Cause if that skull's that hard, then there's probably about a 7-inch circle that you can hit that buffalo in to take it down.
Yeah. It's gotta be right in the heart.
Yeah.
They had it figured out though.
Yeah, they did, huh?
Those Plains Indians, they could do it.
Yeah. And that was before the horse. They were doing it before the horse even got here, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Which is interesting.
Yeah. That's cool stuff.
Yeah. Well, guys, man, got anything else to talk about?
We can end it on Buffalo Krill.
Buffalo Krill?
Roman ribeye. Yep.
Roman ribeye.
Oh, you changed your name now?
Roman ribeye is my TikTok name.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
I'm just taking all the nicknames people have given me over the years.
The ones that made you cry.
And turning them into things that make other people feel better about themselves.
Got it.
Hell yeah. That's what I'm talking about. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate the listen, and come work out with us at the park. Head to thestrengthemporium.com. Check out all the gear we got, and we'll see you guys next week.